If I asked you, what does it mean to be wealthy? Would you give me a number or would you give me a feeling? Would you give me an experience like buying a luxury car that you've been dreaming about for God knows how long? Or would it be a peaceful morning with a cup of coffee knowing everything's being taken care of and you are the one that took care of it? What does wealth really mean? Now, I have a thing about the word wealth. Don't love the word. We'll get into why that is in a second. But I want to make you think about, what does the word wealth or the feeling of wealth mean to you? And is that how many zeros are after a number in your bank account? Or is it really a feeling you have? A feeling of confidence that you're going to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And knowing that everything's all right, everything's taken care of. Now, I am going to put the notion out there that money does not equal happiness. It does not necessarily equal less stress, any of that kind of thing. We can do a whole other video on how that's not reality. But I wanted to discuss what wealth means to you, because I don't think we think about it enough. I think we think about getting to wealth, getting to being wealthy. If I was wealthy, that's why we all go out and buy those lottery tickets when it's $1 billion or more and things. I even do that. We all do it, right? And what would we consider to be wealthy? And why is that? What makes us wealthy? So if that sounds good to you, stick around, because that is what we're going to be discussing. Now, for those of you who are returning viewers, welcome back. We're so happy to have you. And if you are new here, welcome. I'm Lisa. I've been a financial advisor for almost 15 years now, and I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. So if that sounds good to you, that is what we kind of discuss here in the long run. So here's why this video came about. Well, first of all, let me explain to you why I have kind of a push away reaction when I hear wealth. Wealth to me sounds like an untouchable. You know, there's a lot of discussion whether you follow politics or not, whether you follow what's going on. I have to for the work that I do. But there's a lot of discussion about the wealthy. And there's either a very negative connotation to it, or there's a very positive connotation to it. And I think the word wealthy makes having money feel not reachable. And that's why I kind of have the aversion to the word wealth, because I think it makes it unattainable to many people. When they hear wealth, it's like, oh, I can't ever get that. And we're going to discuss why that's not true. And B, I feel like it can have a negative connotation, like, you know, tax the wealthy, tax the rich, right? And, you know, and so people don't necessarily want it. And I think that when people feel a negative connotation to wealth or rich, they don't necessarily push themselves to get to what the ultimate goal is, which is not necessarily wealth or being rich. It's about financial independence, financial freedom. And that could mean just being able to handle, you know, $4,000 a month of expenses. That's not wealthy. You know, that's just being able to handle that and not have to worry about money so much, not having to have that extra stress on you. So I think that's one of the things that makes me kind of push away from the word wealthy. But I think it's really interesting, and the reason that I wanted to do this video in general was I think that people have different ways of looking at wealth or being financially independent or financially free, or whatever word you want to use. The reason I'm using wealth is because of a story that I'm going to tell you. It's not actually a story, it's what actually happened to me. So I was being driven to the airport very early in the morning. One morning, a couple weeks back, I was at a conference. I had to leave very early. And so it's like 4 in the morning. And I'm being driven by this lovely man who found out I was in finance, is interested in finance. And so we talked about finance the whole time, which is fine. He worked my brain. I was not quite awake. So that was okay. But, it's funny. So we were talking about stocks and we were talking about, investing and where should he invest. And, I can't give him recommendations. I don't know his situation, but we talked about different sectors and the pros and cons and all that stuff. And he said, he kept saying, I don't have any money. I'm very poor. I don't have any money. And it's funny, as we started to get into this conversation, more and more about what he was doing and why he was doing this and what he was building, turns out he was a business owner. He owned the driving company that he was doing, right? So he has multiple employees and he does tons of runs and he runs his business and all that. And so many people would say, well, he's a business owner. Isn't that wealthy? Well, some business owners will tell you, no, that doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy. I mean, I'm just trying to make the bills here, right? So that could take it off the table. But then at the end of our conversation, he mentioned that he liked real estate. And I said, that's not surprising to me. A lot of people do. And we've had discussions on real estate and all that stuff. So you know my opinion on this. And if you don't, there's tons of videos. Just keep checking it out and you'll find videos on real estate and real estate investing and should you buy your house or rent and all that. We've done plenty of those videos. And I find out that he owns 3 homes outside of his primary home that he owns. And so he owns 4 properties that he is slowly paying off so that he will have income in retirement. And he said he was pretty close to paying 1 or 2 of them off and all that stuff. I don't want to get too in the details of what his circumstances were. So then other people would sit back and say, well, he's wealthy. I mean, he owns 4 properties and a business. Well, why would he not be considered to be wealthy? In his mind, though, I don't believe he thinks he's wealthy. I think he believes that he's making do and he's trying to be responsible and he's setting things up. And in his head, probably, I didn't ask him this, but probably wealth is one thing. And to many people, wealth is another thing. And I applaud him. I mean, he said he, was here, came here and didn't have much money and has built this wonderful life and seems to have this great family that he's raising. And just, he was a wonderful man, just, point blank. But I think it's interesting that his definition of being poor and still working on this, on building something, is different than what somebody else might consider to be wealthy. And so it made me start thinking about the evolving definition of wealth and how oftentimes when we think about wealth, we think about other people's definition of wealth. But it really should be your definition of wealth. And I remember saying to him, well, I applaud you. I think you're doing a great job. You're building up these safety nets for retirement. You've got your business. You're learning how to do, stocks and bonds. And yeah, we've all made mistakes and done that stuff, but you're doing a really good job building your knowledge and figuring it out. And in his mind, he's still building. And in somebody else's mind, that's not building. You've made it. You've done some really great stuff. So what is your definition of wealth? He's not wrong. And neither is the person who says, what are you talking about? He's wealthy. He owns 4 properties. What are you talking about? It's wealthy. So there's no right answer to this. But I do think we need to take more time to define what wealthy is really going to feel like for us. And when I say wealthy again, instead of doing the right? Think about financial freedom. Think about what in your head you would sit back and go, I got it. And I'm doing a little precursor because I had another really interesting conversation that I think would be ideal for people to hear about the fear of financial freedom and how there's a bunch of emotions that go with that too. But we'll get into that part of it. But in that building phase, do you know what it feels like? Do you know the number you want to feel wealthy? Do you know what your end goal is? And if you don't have an end goal, it's okay, actually. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know what that number is or don't know. It's okay. I would encourage you to figure that out so you have some kind of idea of what you're trying to accomplish, because it's really hard to reach a goal if you don't know what that number is. But, what does being financially successful look like to you? Does it look like having passive income in retirement so you don't have to worry about it? Does it mean you have a big number in one of your brokerage accounts and so that's what it is? Does it mean, saving to different vehicles so you don't have taxable income in retirement and so you're able to live without having to pay a bunch of tax? Does that mean owning 5-10 properties? And that, I kind of brought up passive income, but that would be passive income. It's not really passive, but income in retirement. What does that mean? And I think that people have a set idea that wealth is a certain amount of money in the bank account, and that's not necessarily it. So what does it mean? So the exercise I'd like you to do right now is to take out a pen and paper or pencil and paper and think about what would it mean to have it all. Have it all, right? And write down what that means to you. And then read it and decide, is that what you actually believe, or is that what you've been told it's supposed to be? And I say that because as women out there, if you're a man watching this, I apologize, you might or might not understand this, but for many women out there, having it all is, being a successful career woman, having a spick and span house, cooking dinner every night, having 2 or 3 lovely children that are just so well behaved, having the great husband or partner, whatever, that is with you, that you feel like, and everything's just balanced. You're happy, you're cheerful, and you can wear your size 2 clothes, right? This is what we all think is having it all. But I can guarantee you that many women who have gotten to that point are very unhappy because they feel like they are putting on a show for other people, and that they would be much happier if instead of having a spick and span house, they had a little chaos so that they could just have some fun with their kids. They could, do finger painting and, whatever else you do. I don't have kids, so I don't quite know what you do, but I used to be a teacher, so I do know how it is to work with kids and have fun with them. But, what does that mean to you? What does your wealthy look like? And if you wrote down what it looks like to have it all or to be wealthy, then I would like you to start redlining it and going through and crossing out the things that actually don't bring you joy, but are preconceptions that you have been told you were supposed to have. And you will end up finding that your wealth plan, your financial freedom plan, your rich plan, whatever you want to call it, right, is a lot simpler than you think it is. And I think there is a huge amount of power of knowing that your plan to get to financial freedom is so much simpler than you are making it out to be. Because when you have a simple idea, it is so much easier to accomplish it. It's not easy, but it's easier than you're making it out to be. And sometimes just understanding that what you want is simple is the biggest barricade you can move so that you actually start taking some action. So true wealth is quieter than many people think it is. It's much more powerful and it's much more personal than people want. So with just a couple minutes left, I do want to go through kind of the 5 rules, dimensions, whatever, of wealth, and I want you to think about them for you. And you might even keep this in mind as you're writing things out or as you're redlining what you wrote out about your vision of true, financial freedom or wealth. So one is financial security. It's really hard to say that somebody has hit financial freedom if you don't have some kind of security. Whether that's freedom from having a paycheck anxiety, having emergencies taken care of, having choices. Really, I always say once you hit that number that you know that everything is taken care of and you don't have to worry about money anymore, you now have choices. And sometimes choices means taking some of that money and doing something with it that maybe takes you out of financial freedom for a bit, but maybe brings you back in a much better financial freedom position. And the nice thing is, by hitting financial freedom, you have those choices. You have that ability to do that. Number 2 is time freedom. Ability to spend time how you choose. Taking a random Tuesday off without feeling guilty. And this will be a big topic in the next video where we talk about fears of financial freedom. But time freedom is really important. And it's so much, time goes by so fast. It's the end of 2025. What happened to this year? I have no idea. And it's not just me that says this. Everybody keeps saying this. And I know we say this every year, but it just seems like time's just, spinning out of control. I don't know if it's because we get so much news and so much information, and so it goes so much fast. I don't know what it is. I'm sounding like an old person because I am getting older. But anyhow, time's very valuable, so we want to make sure. One is emotional wealth. Peace of mind, not having to worry about money so much. Money can't buy peace, but planning can. And knowing how we're going to accomplish it and that you've accomplished it is very good. Relationships, they say that a huge number of divorces are because of money issues. And I always say I've been married for, what are we at now, 15, 16 years? So you start to lose count over time. But over time, I always say the thing that I think has really helped us is being on the same page when it came to money and being on the same page of how our lifestyles are. Neither one of us want to go out to the bars and hang out and have late nights. That's important. People do not think about that at all. But that's lifestyle choice in terms of, do you want to be out partying or do you want to be at home, watching a movie or reading a book or something? That's a huge difference. But also money choices, knowing how you want to handle money together. Does that mean that neither one of us ever spend money? Of course not. But having a really healthy ability to discuss and be on the same page for money is a big one. So that will help a lot with relationships. And also, just FYI, you can be that millionaire next door and not tell your family, because sometimes that can cause some tension with family or friends, if they feel like you're winning and they're not. So just FYI, maybe keep it in the immediate family and you don't have to tell everybody else about it. And then purpose wealth. So the joy that comes from using your money and time to align with what really matters to you, whether that's giving back, whether that's taking time to create, whether that's taking time to explore and learn. One pattern I can see with a lot of people who have made it, who are considered to be successful or wealthy, is they spend a lot of time learning. They spend a lot of time reading. They spend a lot of time being creative. They have that capability because they're not worried about an extra tax or about an extra this or about, they're not worried as much about that. And so your values and your finances sync together, and that's really what wealth is. So take those 5 ideas when you're writing your plan of wealth. And you might even decide to take those 5 items and say, okay, I've written my definition of wealth, I've redlined it to the bare bones, and now I'm going to take that and break it down to financial security, time, emotional, relationship, and purpose. And so you've got to think about your definition of wealth. What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel free? What makes you feel fulfilled? Those are other things to write down and to review. I would not even say occasionally, review regularly. And so remember, wealth isn't always a dollar amount. It's about a journey. It's about an alignment between your actions and your vision, and making sure your vision is your vision. And if you can break that down, you are going to be so much farther ahead than so many other people out there. So with that, what are your thoughts on this? Does this inspire you to be a little bit more in touch with that wealth component for you? Or does this scare you? And that's okay if it scares you, but you need to figure that out and address it. Otherwise, you're going to be in the same spot that you were, last year and next year and the year after that, and you're going to wonder why things aren't being accomplished for you. And then that's one of them, is not having this definition down for you. With that, I'm going to leave you here long enough talking about this stuff. Though I'll be back next time to talk about it some more. And let me know if you have any questions, reach out. And until the next video, stay strong out there, be kind to one another, and we will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.